In this video, we're going to take a tour of Islands of Adventure to determine which rides are worth going on. I'll be giving you a general overview of each attraction, where it's located in the park, the intensity of the ride, its average wait time, and whether or not you should do it. With all that said, let's start out in the port of entry. From here, we'll take a right turn straight into Seuss Landing, where our first ride sits. The Cat in the Hat is a kid-friendly dark ride based on the iconic book by Dr. Seuss. Since it's meant to be a ride for children, it gets a very low 1 out of 5 on the intensity scale. The wait times are pretty low as well, almost never getting over a 30-minute wait. If it is over 30 minutes, I'd recommend skipping this one. In fact, I'd recommend skipping this one no matter what the wait is. The ride is kind of a mess right now, with poor visual effects and broken animatronics. It can still be a fun ride and good enough for the kids, but it's nowhere near the best attraction at the park. It's not even the best attraction at Seuss Landing, but we'll get to that later. Right next door to the Cat in the Hat is One Fish, Two Fish, Red Fish, Blue Fish, a simple spinning flat ride. This ride has the gimmick of spraying water at guests, although you can avoid it as long as you follow the instructions. Apart from that, the intensity is a very low 1 out of 5. Wait times are usually pretty short as well. If you have small kids, this is a great attraction to stop by. Otherwise, you can probably skip it unless you have nothing better to do. Now, let's head across the pathway over to the centerpiece of this land, the Carousel. This is a basic carousel ride with some nice Dr. Seuss theming. Like One Fish, Two Fish, this is a fairly basic flat ride that gets a 1 out of 5 on the intensity scale. The line is usually pretty short as well, rarely getting much higher than 20 minutes. This is another ride that might be fun if you have kids, but otherwise is a pretty easy skip. Finally, let's talk about the High in the Sky Seuss Trolley Train Ride. This is a simple train ride that takes you around Seuss Landing, offering a unique viewpoint from high off the regular pathways. There are 2 different tracks that take you to 2 different places, so it's worth a re-ride if you have the time. Like all the attractions in Seuss Landing, I'd put this at a 1 out of 5 on the intensity scale. However, this attraction tends to get the longest lines of the bunch, sometimes ending up in the 40 to 50 minute range. I wouldn't say it's long on average, but it can get long depending on the day. Still, if it's around the 30-minute point, I'd recommend giving this a shot. It's a really charming ride with some great views, and by far my favorite in this area of the park. Even if you're an adult, it's a fun time, although it's obviously not a 5-star ride or anything. It's just a cute little ride that's worth your time if you're able. Next up, let's head on through the Lost Continent to get to one of the most iconic theme park lands in the world, Hogsmeade. This is home to 3 of the most popular attractions at the park, but also 3 of the best. Let's start off with Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure, one of the newest rides at the park. This is a family roller coaster taking you on a journey throughout the Forbidden Forest, encountering several magical creatures along the way. Despite it being a roller coaster, I don't think this ride is extremely intense. It has its moments, but compared to some of the other coasters at the park, I would probably place it at a 4 out of 5 on the intensity scale. As for the average wait time, as you might expect, it is very, very long. This is typically the longest wait time in the entire resort, with an average range of 1 to 3 hours. If you see it at around an hour, I'd take your chances and get in line. No matter how long you have to wait though, you have to do this ride. It's one of the best attractions in the entire resort, with fantastic theming and some great surprises. Although the wait may seem a bit rough, it's entirely worth your time if you've never experienced this attraction. It's truly something special. Close by is yet another Harry Potter themed roller coaster, Flight of the Hippogriff. This is a much less intense kiddie coaster, with some nice scenery but not much in terms of theming. I'd place it at a 2 out of 5 on the intensity scale, making it perfect for younger guests. When it comes to the wait times, like Hagrid's, this sees some of the longest waits at the park. It typically hovers around the 60-minute mark, although it can get both shorter or longer. It's worth a shot if you have the time, but otherwise this is my least favorite of the 3 Harry Potter attractions here. It's fine enough if you have kids, but too short of an experience to justify its enormous wait time. Last but not least, we'll enter the halls of Hogwarts Castle to experience Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. This is one of the most innovative dark rides ever made, taking you to several iconic locations throughout the Wizarding World. It can be a bit scary and intense, with some near-inverting moments and face-to-face encounters with several creatures. Because of that, I'd put it at a 3 out of 5 on the intensity scale, although it is leaning on a 4. As for wait time, shockingly enough, this is by far the least busy of the 3 attractions in the land. It can get long, around 60 minutes, but ever since Hagrid's opened, I've often seen it around the 20 to 30 minute mark. If you see it at around that length, this is an absolute no-brainer to do. It's one of the star attractions of the park, and one of the best dark rides ever made. Even if it's around an hour wait, it's definitely worth it, although perhaps try waiting until the wait time goes down a little bit. Right outside the Wizarding World stands the gate leading into Jurassic Park, where our next 3 attractions sit. First up is the newest ride at the park, Jurassic World VelociCoaster. This is an intense roller coaster where you'll be sent through a raptor paddock and burst out the other end. This may be the most intense ride in the resort, so it gets an easy 5 out of 5 on the intensity scale. Because of how new and crazy it is, this ride also tends to get some very long waits. Not quite as long as Hagrid's, but still hovering around an hour at least. As for my personal recommendation, if you're not afraid of roller coasters, you have to ride this. This is my favorite roller coaster I've ever been on, and I doubt there's anything out there that could top it. It's an insane ride, and my personal favorite at the park. A little ways down is our second dinosaur-themed attraction, Jurassic Park River Adventure. This water ride is a well-themed journey through the rivers of Jurassic Park, with an intense and terrifying drop to top it all off. While most of the ride is pretty serene, that final drop alone is enough to raise this to a 3 out of 5 on the intensity scale. The line for this ride depends on when you're visiting. Since it's a water ride, lines will usually be longer around the summertime and dip in the wintertime. Along with that, lines will also get longer later into the day, when the sun is at its brightest. Overall though, I'd say the wait times are about average. If it's not too cold out and the line isn't too long, I'd highly recommend this ride. All of the water rides at Universal are fantastic, and this one gets you the least wet of the 3. It still gets you pretty wet, don't get me wrong, but the other 2 are just insane. We'll get to them later in the video. For now, let's head on into Camp Jurassic for the final ride here at Jurassic Park. Pteranodon Flyers is a kid-friendly ride in the skies on your very own dinosaur. In fact, this ride is so kid-friendly that you can only go on it if you have a kid with you. Because of that, I've actually never been on this ride, so I couldn't give you an accurate rating of the intensity or my personal recommendation. Regardless, from what I've seen, the line for this ride can get very long. Sometimes it peaks all the way up at 60 minutes, which doesn't seem worth it from what I've heard. Regardless, if you have a kid with you, it may be worth a shot. Not a lot of people have been on this ride because of the kids-only restrictions, so it's a unique experience to have at the parks. If you have been on this ride, be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments down below. Anyways, that's all for Jurassic Park. Now, let's head right into the home of King Kong himself, Skull Island. Skull Island Reign of Kong is a simulated dark ride similar to Fast and Furious at Universal Studios. Here, you'll journey into Kong's home and escape the many creatures found on Skull Island. Being a simulator ride, I'd put this at a 2 out of 5 on the intensity scale, although the jerking motions and loud noises put it close to a 3. When it comes to wait times, however, this ride has insanely long lines. I often see this ride with at least a 45-minute wait, and often even longer than that. For that absurdly long wait time, I don't think this ride is worth it. If you catch it at around 20 to 30 minutes, I'd give it a shot, but admittedly, the ride itself is okay at best. I like it just fine, but I know plenty of people that straight up hate it. Again, you may as well try if it's around 30 minutes, but I'd skip it if it's any longer than that. Now, let's head out of the dark Skull Island and into the bright and colorful Toon Lagoon. The first ride we'll see in this land is Dudley Do-Right's Ripsaw Falls, a log flume water ride that gets guests absolutely soaked. With its 3 intense drops, I have to put this at a 3 out of 5 on the intensity scale. As for the wait time, like Jurassic Park River Adventure, it really depends what time of the year you're going. This one can get all the way up to 2 hours long, but also all the way down to 20 minutes. In terms of my personal recommendation, I'd say you should give it a shot. If it's an insanely long wait, you should probably skip it, but otherwise, it is one of my favorite water rides I've ever been on. Popeye and Bluto's Bilge Rat Barges is known for getting people drenched from head to toe. It's not any more intense than those other 2 water rides, probably around a 3 out of 5, but it's much more random and unkind to those wanting to stay dry. Again, the wait time depends on when you go, but this generally has the least insane wait times of the 3 water rides here. If you're willing to get drenched, I'd highly recommend this ride, especially if you're with a group of people. Watching people's reactions as they get hit by the waterfall is one of the great joys of life. Next up, let's jump straight into Marvel Superhero Island to talk about the amazing adventures of Spider-Man. This high-tech dark ride takes guests into Spider-Man's New York City, where the Sinister Six is trying to steal the Statue of Liberty. While it does throw you around a bit, I wouldn't give this ride any higher than a 3 out of 5 on the intensity scale. It can get bumpy, but nothing too extreme. As for the wait time, I'd say it's about average. While I've seen it peak at around 60 minutes, most of the time it's somewhere between 20 and 40. No matter how long you have to wait, this is an essential ride. Each time I re-ride it, I become more and more tempted to call it my favorite at the park. While I'm unsure it quite takes that crown, it's certainly high up there. You have to do this when you go to the park. Around the corner from Spider-Man sits Dr. Doom's Fearfall, a fairly simple drop tower ride. Despite its short length, it is fairly intense, with a drop from 185 feet in the air. That puts it at a 4 out of 5 on the intensity scale. As for the lines, I don't usually see this much higher than 30 minutes. It can get long on certain days, but most of the time, it's pretty short. For my personal recommendation, I'd say it depends. To me, this ride is nothing special, although the queue is kind of fun to look through. It's just too short of an experience to justify any more than a 20-minute wait, so as long as it's less than that, you may as well give it a shot. Next up is the penultimate attraction on our list, Stormforce Accelatron. This is a simple spinning flat ride located right next to the Incredible Hulk coaster. It can get intense depending on how much you spin, but nothing more than a 3 out of 5. The lines also don't get very long for this one, usually somewhere in the 30-minute area. This is another one that can go either way for me. If you want to try it, you may as well, but for me, it's one I always skip when I'm at the park. It's not bad, but nothing special either. Finally, let's end this with the Incredible Hulk coaster. This huge B&M looper stands 110 feet tall with 7 intense inversions. This is tied with VelociCoaster for the most intense ride at the resort, making it an easy 5 out of 5 on the intensity scale. It can also get some very long lines, typically at the beginning of the day since it's at the front of the park. Other times, however, it can get as short as 15 minutes, so be sure to wait it out if you can. If you're a roller coaster fan, this is a must-do at the park. It's incredibly intense, but in a totally different way than VelociCoaster, which makes it a really fun ride in comparison. I understand skipping it if roller coasters aren't your thing, but otherwise this is a great ride to hop on. That's all for Islands of Adventure. Be sure to check out my Universal Studios ride guide and subscribe for more theme park content. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you all next time.